Hello, everyone. This is Lord Kurnion. I'm here with a special guest. Again, Jacob Brandon is joining me. Say hello.
Hello. Hello.
Malazar can't join us today. He's really busy this time of year. But I wanted to put out a video to respond to Skaven and AZ and Hammer Bros. And I forget who's the first guy. There's the first YouTube reporter that I guess posted the first video of this in response to everyone there, and I wanted to have Jacob join me to give our take on it. So, Jacob, why don't you kick it off?
All right. So, one of the big things that I saw in the videos, and I know I love the Hammer Bros video. I loved it. Skaven AZ's video was a little bit different because I talked to Reese and he gave me I was getting the play by play as it happened at this GT. So I know it was a little bit different than what it seems like. He
Right.
even said at the end of the tournament he was like, I didn't know how to play the list. I lost because I didn't know how to play the list and I went against hard matchups. He even said it. He's like, if I had played a little bit more, I could have probably held out eights, but I didn't because I had no idea what to do. So that was, again, that's an experience issue, and again, that's a skill based factor. That if you know what to do in the right matchups, or if you don't know what to do in the wrong matchups, you're gonna lose big. Compared to if you know what to do and you expect hey, I'm playing Shades versus Glade Guard, I better sit in the corner because I'm not gonna win. So it's just one of those things. You have to go into the game knowing what to expect. If you say, "Oh, I'm," because it's pretty one of the biggest things that I find challenging, because we like doing team events, and one of the big things in team events is you can go into a game and the other person can expect to lose, and they can go into the game playing for a loss, but they're playing to minimize the loss. And it's actually very, very hard to beat somebody by a high amount that is playing for a loss from the very get go.
Yeah.
For dwarf players, for example, if you were to play dwarves and you went against five people that said, and they stuck to this and they had to stick to it, that said, I'm going to deny versus you. I'm not going to come at you. I'm going to sit behind the hill. I'm going to take my 10-10, or I'm going to deny as much as possible. I'm not going to come at you. I'm not even going to risk anything. And it would be very, very hard for that dwarf player to ever score big wins unless they got a little lucky, which
Mhm.
again, it can happen. If you're playing greater demons, you can cannon off the greater demon or get an indirect hit, it happens. Fine.
Yeah.
Okay. But the point is that against a very good player against another very good player, when one player says, I'm not going to try and win this game, it's very, very hard to get beyond a 12-8 where you're trading small 150 battle point chaff units to each other. And that's what the game becomes is one person's trying to give you as little as possible, but they understand making a few cuts to their list basically. If hey, I'm gonna sack a couple battle points to make sure I don't lose in the long run, that's fine.
Mhm.
If I as because you're on my team for ETC 4-man, and
Right.
if you said oh, I'm gonna lose this game, and you said okay, I'm gonna get a 8 or 9, probably maybe a 7 if things go bad, and you pull out a 7 and be like, all right, you told me that you were gonna do that. That's fine.
Right.
You lost. But you knew the expectation, you got the expectation, and that means you played correctly to what you thought was the correct play, which is, if you made that assumption, then it probably is, because we probably paired based off that. So that's one
Right.
of the big things, ETC, and which this was an ETC tournament with Reese going to it, and pairings and lists come into play is to factor out that bad matchup luck, I guess. But in singles, it happens. You just go into your matchup, you say, okay, what do I expect here? I'm going to get that number, and if you do it, then you fulfilled your job. If you played five dwarves and you pulled 5 10s, then what are you going to do? That sucks. That is luck, but you still pulled what you should have pulled. You
Right.
played to your ability, so
Yeah.
that's the same. If you have an undergrad college team go up against the Patriots, they're we're gonna lose. It's obvious. I'm gonna lose this game, but let's see how much we can hold. And you state oh, okay, I'm gonna hold to 40 points, which is some arbitrary number. You get the point.
Yeah.
But as long as you fulfill that goal you set before the game started, then it's fine. So
Right. Yeah. No, I can see that. Controlling the matchups. Like, I mean, that's an experience thing. If you know your list really well, you know what you can do against certain things. And as you said, Reese said he didn't do that. What would you?
He's been playing the list for like a couple weeks. Like,
Okay.
he had
Yeah,
never taken it to a GT before, so okay.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, I could see that being an issue. I mean, my take on, and I mentioned this a little bit before, take on luck is, I've said it before, and I mean, I've said it in response to my Brawler Bash performance, which was what I didn't do, and that is I didn't control the luck, basically. Like, you have a say in minimizing it. If there is a risk that you don't have to take, don't take it. I mean, if there's a boxcar charge that someone can make and you don't gain anything by allowing them to keeping them in range, and they don't lose anything by attempting it, then don't give it to them. I mean,
that was actually the reason. Sorry, the last ETC bragging rights team tournament, which is the only American team tournament, as of 2 years ago, it was the first ETC team tournament. Right. It was decided on a 12-inch charge with no gain for one person, and the guy made it, and he won. Yeah. And it was what decided first place over second place. That was it. The guy didn't need to give him a 12-inch charge. It was Wood Elves versus Skaven, and he gave a 12 to Skaven Slave, and the guy was like, okay, I'll go for it. And I was like, shit. If you make it, I'm screwed. And he made it. And he was like, oh, well, you got 2 points instead of a 10.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, it's one of those things, there's certain things you can control, and you need to, obviously, in a game, you need to try to minimize as much as possible, especially in a singles. Well, I mean, I guess especially in a team.
Especially in a team.
Yeah.
Because it goes back to your expectations. If you go into a game in singles and something happens, that's only a detriment to you. It'll hurt you at the end of the day, but it only hurts you. But for teams, if you say, especially if you oh, I'm gonna get a 15 here, and you come out to a 10, if you tie, that's almost as bad as losing in that case.
Right.
Because your expected team value, for me, when I do pairings, I'm all right, if we pair this way, I expect to get a 10-point lead over the opponent team. But if somebody who I expected to win loses, that's a 10, 15-point swing sometimes, which could screw over everybody else because it puts everybody else in a bad position and so whatnot. So
yeah,
knowing the ability of yourself to get what you deem you said you would is huge, especially in singles. Because at Masters, one of the biggest things that people don't understand is you don't need 20s.
Yeah.
You don't need 20s to win. I never got a 20 at Masters. I think my highest score was a 17, 16. Or it was a 6. I think it was a 17.
I think it might have been a 19. Round.
Oh no, it wasn't 19.
Yeah.
It wasn't 19. Well, that wasn't a game I expected to score in 19. I expected to get a 10 in that game, but again, my opponent did something that I didn't expect, so whatever. And I mitigated for it. But if you go into your games and you expect 20s, you'll usually be disappointed at the high level. But if you go in and you're all right, I can get a 15 here, and I can do it most of the time, and I can do it correctly. So one of the things a lot of people said in the two videos that I watched, which was the Skaven AZ and the Hammer Pros video, was Skaven AZ said they made a poker reference, which I know me and you both play or have played poker very competitively in the past. And then the Hammer Bros, they compared it to blackjack at one point, or any type of gambling against the house where you have odds. And one of the biggest things that I do for poker, and I know a bunch of other people do, is you do implied odds when you make a risk. So say you have a play that works. So the way we do it is because you're on the 20-0 system, you do battle points. So for Wood Elves, I play Wood Elves, and I'm going to move my big mage bunker in range to spell something. And if I do this and it works perfectly, I'll get a battle point. So, okay, that's if it works. What happens if it doesn't work? So if it doesn't work, what's the worst case scenario? So say I'm doing something with Sister Bus, and I get charged by this combat unit if it doesn't work. What happens? All right, I'm probably gonna get 20 because this is both my mages, my BSB. It's gonna be bad. So I'm risking 20 to 1 So this play needs to work 95% of the time to be the correct play, basically. And that won't ever happen. Like with a game of dice, like I don't think that ever is the correct way.
Yeah.
So what it comes down to is getting odds where the big breaks are where people get, like 1-to-1 situations or even like 2-to-1 situations. And they're like, I'm getting 2-to-1, like I'm risking like 10 battle points, but if this works out, I'm gonna get 20 because like it's bust and plus action probably. But like it's only going to work like 60% of the time. Like you're still not getting the right odds for that play, but like that might be an acceptable thing to you. And honestly, like in the American scene, which I find disappointing a lot of the time, is that people will put themselves in a position where they go for like the 10% play, risking it all.
Yeah.
And it's kind of frustrating, like, because when I've played a couple Europeans in my life, my Warhammer life, and they basically never will do that. And they play like I do, where like, all right, I'm risking X to get Y. Am I getting the odds? And they're like, okay, if I'm not, then I'm not going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll play a much more movement-oriented game where they risk a lot. People risk a lot less, but they gain a lot less in a lot of cases. But that's fine because, like again, I said at Masters, like you don't need 20s to win. And a lot of GTs, you don't need 20s to win. You just need to win. And like 15, like 5 15s will do it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and
No.
one of the things I hope America like steps up on in their overall play level, or just as a gamer for the game, that's what I hope happens.
Yeah. No, I agree. What do you respond to like this crazy swing? So, I mean, it is a dice game, right? Occasionally crazy stuff happens. And you will two dice something and your vampire lord goes in the hole on a miscast on
Yeah,
two
it
dice.
happens. I've only blamed like one serious loss on luck, and that's when I was playing Beastman and I actually didn't get to go. I I lost my entire army. It was versus two health cannons, and I lost my entire army before I got my first turn.
Yeah.
And like I was like, all right, like yes, there were things I could have done differently that would have prevented that, but like it was one of those things like it happens. Like there are the cases where these things happen, but again, like even then, like I could have minimized that. I could
Right.
have like I could have spread out a lot more, so my chain panics could not have failed. Like one of the biggest things I've seen was Daniel Furbosh played Collins Mullins at Brawlers Bash one year, and he has an unbreakable 10 rerollable Death Star, but it's near the board edge, and he gets charged by 3 chariots and a BSB. Okay, he's gonna lose combat. He will probably lose combat, so he's gonna take a 10 rerollable check. You pass that 99% of the time, or it's like 90% of the time. But again, like it's one of those things like why risk these little 10% things when you don't have to do it?
Right.
Like you could have blocked one or two of the chariots, so like you're not going to lose combat or something like that. And again, like don't give them all easy charges. Like it's just a bunch of little things. Like people don't realize how many little things add up in this game. Like another thing was like people don't you like understand how value works for this game. Where if you get the most value or mileage out of your if you're getting efficiency in your army, you'll get the best result. And people usually that's how they lose. They don't get the most efficiency, they don't get the most value. They're like, oh, this unit isn't going to do anything. I'm just going to throw it away.
Mm.
All right, stuff like that. And it's again, it's about playing to the best of your ability to get a score that you deem respectable. So again, like you get in a bad matchup, you're going to lose. It's fine. Hold an 8.
Right.
Longevity of your tournament, if you get zeros, you are killing your long-term tournament.
Right.
You are destroying it. Getting an 8, you are still in it. You can recoup from those losses. It's
Right.
one of those, and that's another thing that I don't think people understand is like they want to put themselves in the 20 or 0 category, and they usually don't. And there's again, like I said, there's almost never you're never getting the right odds to do that. And like you're and those also are usually the games that are turned into like the most frustrating for people, are usually the least fun. Now there are some games that are like 10/10s that are the least fun because like nothing really happens.
Right.
But like I they both fall into the same very close category for people. So like some of my most enjoyable games have been like 15/5 either way.
Right.
So like those are the good ones. But like again, I just think as a someone who plays very competitively, like I like to play against the best people, and again, I enjoy a fast, loose game that I can like. When I started playing, I did a campaign of 1,500 point doubles. That's how I learned to play this game, and it was awesome. I loved it.
Yeah.
But like again, I enjoy more the competitive aspect when I go to a GT. I expect that's what I'm going into because that's what people travel for. And if I wanted to play relax, I'd go to my local store and I go in asking for that. But at a GT, I go in asking for the best, and that's just the way I view it. But some people disagree. Some people want to go have like be more relaxed, and that's fine.
Mhm.
But like, and that's why also they do the hobby hero are like the soft score split for some tournaments now, where you have like the
Right.
people that want to go play hard and the people that want to go play soft. I think that's a good idea.
I think, yeah.
Because like it's again it splits up because the people that usually run into each other, those are the people that don't enjoy it as much because each person wants something different and you're not gonna get both.
Right.
So but again back to luck and skill. Again, it's just one of those things, and that's another thing is that it's how you approach this game. Because one of the biggest things that irks me in this game is when people complain about dice, and I usually like sometimes I'll agree, and it's kind of like yeah, like another comparison to the Hammer Bros video, like Keith Bono got his Lord level 4 Manfred sniped turn 1 by a Warp Lightning Cannon. Like that sucks. But again, like longevity of your tournament, play for the loss at that point. He
Right.
held 9 points. He held 9 points. Some people would just give up. And it like that's no fun. Like sure, something happened, but that sucks. Like keep playing the game. Like
Right.
you can still hold on if you do it correctly. And that's where the heavy skill comes in, and that's where I think people lack right now in the majority is they don't have that mindset of which another thing I'm glad about the Masters doing because Master rankings now, so you have that kind of it's added that sense of you want to preserve your longevity for the in tournament score, like not winning an award isn't like always your end result if you're going for Masters. Like if you're going for Masters and you get fifth, like you don't win anything, but that's a good score for your Masters
Mhm.
qualifier. Like that's a great score. That's probably like an 88 or a 90 in some cases.
Yeah.
Like
No,
that's a
Malasar's gotten 2/5s, and he's second in MA right now.
yeah. Yeah, like he's almost guaranteed. He just needs to do like one more top 10 and he's in. Has he won anything? He won a best general the one time, but he didn't win anything the other time. It
Yep.
was like fine.
He didn't. He
Like
didn't even podium either.
yeah. So like, you don't have like that's one of the good things I like about it is it adds a sense to have that longevity in your tournament life. So it makes you play for every point. It makes you value those points a lot more. Because
Right.
like if you're not going for a podium, it gives you a reason to hang on or a reason to not give up the 0-20 and just be like, all right, whatever. Because that's another thing that people do is in singles, the biggest thing was like, well, you have to go for the 20 because if you don't, then you don't podium. And if you get the 0, then whatever. Like finishing like fifth to last didn't really matter because it's all the same thing at the end of the day. Like you don't get anything, but this adds something to it, which I'm very happy it does.
Right.
So,
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, and yeah, talking about minimizing, that's kind of what I was hoping that you would go with. Like I kind of assumed you would. But like, yeah, sometimes random stuff happens with dice, and there's nothing you can do about it. And sometimes you get a bad matchup in a singles event, and there's nothing you can do about that. But the skill comes in where you minimize that. Like two of my, I guess, these are both in the preparations for the ETC team event, but they're probably two of my proudest losses that I've had.
mhm.
And one of them was a couple weekends ago when we played the other team from Foul. And I was up against a Wood Elves. And I mean, you could argue that I did a bad play. Basically, I was running at the time. I changed it, a double Greater Demon list. You know this, Jacob. But turn two, my Bloodthirster, who was behind hard cover, ate 20 arrows from Way Watchers, and they were hitting on something high, wounding on sixes, and I had a 5-up ward save, and he got 6 wounds through, and I only warded 2 of them, so I took 4 wounds, and then the next turn I failed my frenzy check. And I had to charge out in the middle of nowhere, no cover, and my Bloodthirster died. 2 turns later, my Big Bird Dimensional Cascaded went into the hole. So I lost 1,200 victory points on random stuff, but I pulled it back to a 12-8. And so that was one of those like wins that I was really proud of that, because I was able to preserve points and was able to get points back. So that's like in terms of dice sometimes happening, but I was able to bring it back, and luck over the course of the game averaged out, and I was able to capitalize when it turned my way, despite the fact that I got hurt when it turned against me. The other one is talking about matchups. When the first time I played Kuro Lanen, who's the Norwegian ETC team, on the Norwegian ETC team for the High Elves, he runs a Banner of the World Dragon Light Coven. That is kryptonite for demons, especially one with double greater demon. But the first time I played him, I pulled a 12-8. Same thing. It was much better than I expected to be able to do. And both of those wins are, those are, one was a bad matchup and one where, oh yeah, I got a little bit unlucky. In the first one, you could argue my Bloodthirster I shouldn't have allowed it to be possible for his Way Watchers to move to shoot at me, but I did. You could argue that that's a mistake, but even in that case, it was unlikely that it happened. But I still put myself in a position to get unlucky, and I did, but I was able to come back from it.
One of the things about like that, like, do you think you made the right play?
Probably.
Okay, then this is how I look at it. Whenever like something like that happens, like something devastating like that, it's best to look back at it and be like, would I make this same play again? Like most of the time. And if your answer is yes, then like, and again, you have to look at this very carefully. Like charges, for example. Like if you're like, oh, I would still do that charge most of the time, and you really think about it, you run the math, you run everything, and you're like, yeah, that was just a high spike, then it's fine. But again, a lot of people don't do that. Some people are like, yeah, I charged my Bloodthirster, or before he was stubborn, I charged my Bloodthirster into 2 banners, 3 ranks, and a champ, and yeah, oh my god, he popped from combat res, like, like, sometimes people put themselves in positions where like luck can happen, and then it happens, and they're like, oh, it's devastating. But like, again, in long term, like everybody gets the same dice. Averages will average out. It's math. It happens. Like again, another poker term is like everybody gets the exact same cards. You just have to do different things with them.
Right.
Like it's just what it is, and it's how you do it. So like again, you get it at different times, but like again, it's how you maximize. You get the most value. You get the most edge for yourself, and that is your end score. And it's who can utilize those edges, and that's where the skill comes in. I think this game is like 90% skill. Like again, there is dice, there is a luck factor. Like it's not perfect, but again, like who wants to play perfect? Like I played competitive chess and I hated it because it's super boring. Because like somebody else said, like they can do chess ranking, then you can know the percentage of the time you'll win and lose, and it'll be like within like a 5% variation most of the time. Like it's super accurate. And again, it's one of those things like it's just that's numbers at that point. Like you're just running simulations. Like that's not fun. Now we want variation, but again, this isn't a game of Yahtzee. Like there won't be super variation if you because of player skill anyway. But for matchup basing, like one of the biggest I've seen people like get discouraged because of matchup basing, but again, it's one of those things that you have to say, all right, I'm going into a GT. How many games am I going to have good matchups for? Probably 3 at best. Like you're not going to run into 5 slam dunks most of the time, but you're also not going to run into 5 anti-slam, like you're getting slammed. Like it usually doesn't happen. Like even Reese on that show, like he ran into 3 bad matchups, but again, like he didn't do the right decisions in those games, so he got zeros. But then he won 2 other games, so like he faced 3 bad, 2 good. Like that's fine. It's pretty standard. And it can be the other way around. Most of the time, you face 3 good, 2 bad, and that's list design. For example, this year at Masters, I ran into 4 good and 1 bad, and last year I ran into 5 bad because of list design, and I got 45th compared to first.
Right.
But that's another player skill. That's another thing I like to pride myself on is I like to come up with unique lists that bend the meta and like come and I'm good at doing. I'm good at using lists that people haven't used before. So like wood elves, like I took wood elves to Mid-Atlantic qualifier and I did very well. I got second, and I took a list that not a lot of people have played before, and it did well. And I've always said that taking lists that people don't know how to play against is about the victory, because again, it's experience. It's
Mhm.
all experience in that point. And that's also a skill level is having the most experience. See, like that's real world usage. Like having the most experience gets you the best job. Like it's just one of those things. Like you can apply that to anything. So
Yeah. Yeah.
skills, skills, skills.
Yeah, man.
Like
Dice are
Green Lantern
dice.
shirt.
They average
Yeah.
out over the course of
No,
the game.
everybody gets the same dice. You'll almost never get like a variation that high unless you're playing like 20 players. You roll 6 dice, you deserve to get that low variation and high variation. Sometimes it happens.
Hmm.
More dice you roll, the more average it gets.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Uh, so yeah, I think that was pretty. I think we touched on just about everything. Anything else you want to say?
just think before you act.
Yeah, that's a good way to finish it off. All right.
Yeah,
Thank you guys for watching. Um, hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to comment on your take of luck versus skill, please post it in the comments below. And yeah, have a good evening, guys. This is Shadows of the North, and we are about as cool as we sound.